Hey mamas, you're listening to the Balanced Working Mama podcast, the only podcast teaching you how to balance your work, motherhood, and wellness. I am Dr. Amber Thornton, clinical psychologist and mama wellness consultant. Each week we dive into tips and strategies and much more so that you too can become a balanced working mama. Let's dive in. Hey mamas, welcome to the Balanced Working Mama podcast. I'm Dr. Amber. This is the Balanced Working Mama podcast. Good morning, y'all. So it might not be morning where you are, but where I am, it is very early in the morning because we are just coming off of this whole daylight savings time thing. And it's just really annoying. So if you're annoyed by it, just know I am too. If you follow me on Instagram, you see me complaining and frustrated about it. I think in my household, I'm the one struggling with the sleep the most. Like my kids are pretty adaptable, thank goodness. Um, but I am not always the most adaptable. So my children have fully adapted. But I continue to wake up earlier than my alarm. I've actually done that for the past few months, which wasn't terrible because it gave me a little bit more time in the morning. But now that the time has changed, I'm waking up a whole hour or more before my alarm, and it's just really annoying me. So I'm really hoping that that will level out for me, or otherwise, I will have to figure out if I can go to bed even earlier, which is hard as a mom because, and one of my friends said this best, literally the only time we have for ourselves is when our kids go to bed. So it is tough out here in motherhood because finding time is hard. And I understand that. And, that is why I love working with moms because these are the things that I'm struggling with as well. And I'm fully committed to helping myself and other women find the balance, find the wellness, find the time, find the sleep, any means necessary. These challenges, these barriers that come about and cycle through our lives, because let's be real, the challenges we have today are not going to be the challenges we have next year or the year after that. These things are seasonal. I'm going to eventually adjust my sleep. I hope. Um, but this is a challenge that I need to tackle now. And the answer can't be, well, no sleep. It has to be, how do I intentionally take care of myself, whether it's getting more sleep or making sure I'm really being very tight in terms of taking care of myself in other ways so that my body's not compromised in this season. That is why I love Balanced Working Mama, because that's the work that we do. I'm excited to get into today's episode, but I want to tell you a few more things before we get there. One, we just finished I'm hesitant to say our final Empower Wellness program because, truth be told, I am not sure of what's going to happen with Empower Wellness program. And for those of you who don't know, I don't know how you wouldn't know if you listen to the podcast, but maybe you're new. The Empower Wellness program is our 6-week wellness program for working mamas. It is a virtual program. Everything we do is on Zoom. We meet weekly in a group. Every mama gets 2 wellness assessments. She gets one at the very beginning and then one at the end. And that assessment tells her how she's doing in all 9 areas of wellness for mothers. And typically what happens is mamas get scores that are a little bit lower in the beginning. And then when they graduate, those scores go through the roof because they are so much more aware and knowledgeable and able to carry out their wellness needs because of this program. This program has been life-changing, life-enhancing, difference-making. And I'm not making up these words. These are the words that our mamas have said about the Empower Wellness program. And I'm so honored to have been able to do this work. Now in this season, we are shifting into our Balanced Working Mama community. And I like to think of it as a continuation of the work that the Empower Wellness program does, but also kind of like it incorporates all the amazing things that the Empower Wellness Program had to offer, and puts it in the form of an ongoing, long-lasting dynamic community that you can join and be a part of and really truly find how to do balance in motherhood, how to take care of your wellness even when things are crazy, how to really fully connect with other women and mothers so you don't feel alone. And all of this just makes us even better. It makes us feel good. It ensures that we're thriving. And so I guess I'm saying all this to say I'm feeling very bittersweetly about the end of our Empower Wellness program because I am not sure if there will be another, but I am so excited for our Balanced Working Mama community to come alive in January. And so I truly hope that you've been enjoying our updates that we are giving on the podcast this season about the community. I hope that you will join us for our next community update, which is on November 21st at 2 p.m. I will say that again, November 21st at 2 p.m. You know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and give you the Zoom meeting ID because what happened last time is I had the wrong Zoom meeting ID on basically everything. And so this is the correct Zoom meeting ID. So please get a pen, get a paper, pull your phone out because I want you to come to our next focus group on November 21st at 2 p.m. Okay, do you have your paper? Do you have your pencil? You have your notes app open, something. The Zoom meeting ID is 977 781 4551. I repeat, 977 781 4551. One more time. 977 781 4551. So please join us Sunday, November 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be on Zoom. We will be talking about the community. The goal is for me to get feedback from you about what you want in this community, what would make you want to be a part of this community, how you envision the community. And while you're at it, also put this other date in here. Our last community focus group will be Tuesday, December 14th. And that one is at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I tried to hit all the different times. But the last one is Tuesday, December 14th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Same Zoom meeting ID. All right, y'all, let's get into the episode. Today, I am talking with my good friend, Tara, who was also a past Empower Wellness mama. And also, one thing you should know about Tara is she is such a kind-hearted person because when she participated in the Empower Wellness program in July, she got so much out of it that she financially gifted the Empower Wellness program to two other mamas for this current cycle that has just passed. And so that right there shows you the power because there are mamas who are like, wow, this was so impactful for me. I want to give it to someone else. Tara is actually the second mama that has done that. And so she's amazing. And today she's sharing with us her transition from being a stay-at-home mama to a working mama. And she is fully now working full-time. She has two babies and she's just sharing that story and also providing some tips for mamas who also want to transition from being a stay-at-home mama to becoming a working mama. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please hit me up if you have any questions about our community, about Balanced Working Mama, our Empower Wellness program, about this episode. You all know where to find me, and talk to you soon. Hey mama, Balanced Working Mama is growing. I want to make sure that you stay connected and up to date with everything happening over here. So you don't miss any of the good stuff, head over to balancedworkingmama.com, sign up for the newsletter. You'll always be the first to learn of any new podcast episodes, events, programs, and you'll get a hello from me every now and then. So sign up today, mama, because I want to connect with you soon. Hey, mamas. So, we have a very, very special guest. I've been excited all week to talk to our guest today. One, because she's a past Empower Wellness mama. So, I've been able to like really check in with her and just see how she's doing. But also because she's going to talk about a topic that we actually have not talked about much on the podcast. So, I'm really happy that she's going to be bringing her perspective to this topic. So I'm gonna just let her introduce herself. Tara, please tell us who you are and what you do.
All right. Hello, mamas. I'm so excited to be here with you guys and talk about this topic. It's very dear to me, having that, I've been there. So I'm excited about it. I've been waiting for this. My name is Tara Adams. I'm a mom of two, boy mom of two, and I'm a teacher. I'm teaching right now. I currently work as a childcare professional. So I teach toddlers, but I also work with infants. I graduated from University of Florida with a degree in interdisciplinary social sciences. It's a mouthful, but that's Go Bulls. And that's what I do right now. So I'm still teaching right now, though. I teach toddlers and I really enjoy it. Like, I love kids. So it's great.
Oh my gosh. As soon as you said, because I knew that you were teaching little ones, but
Yeah.
ooh, I really do commend you all. Like, I love my son's teacher in his toddler class, like the one prior to and this one as well, because like when he went, he just learned so much. Like his teacher from last year was so good. And I always like any chance I got, I would always tell her how great she was and like send her
Yeah.
gifts. So let me just say, y'all are amazing. One for the patience that you have. But then also just, it's hard to work with little ones and you do it. So we appreciate you so much. But if you all have not guessed, our topic today is talking about Tara's transition from being a stay-at-home mom to being a working mama. And I want to preface this by saying we are not necessarily advocating for one way or the other. We are definitely just sharing an experience of what it might be like to go from being a stay-at-home mama to a working mama, because we know that your experience is your experience. Everyone has to make the choice for themselves of what's best for them and their families. And for some people, it might be being a stay-at-home mom. And for other people, it might be being a working mom. And then for other people, it might be doing a bit of both. But I'm definitely excited to talk to you, Tara, about your experience, because I think it's something that is interesting. Like, I don't often hear the experience of going from a stay-at-home mama to a working mama. So tell me first, just start out by telling us, what was your experience like as a stay-at-home mom? Like, how was that for you? What was the life like for you? How did that happen?
So I've always thought about being a stay-at-home mom. And I grew up with my mom being one. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for majority of my life, really, up until I was probably in my mid teenage years. So that's a long time. And she had seven of us. So that's a lot of children. And so I love that, we got to stay home with her and we learned at home. So, and I think that was the big difference for me, was the fact that we were still able to learn at home. Because I know sometimes people think like, if your children stay home, you can't really teach them from home, but that's not necessarily true. So I always love the idea of being able to be with my kids for at least like, the first 3 years of their life, because that's like, some of the most critical times that you can spend with them and teach them things. And but it kind of happened, I'd say unexpectedly, because both of my pregnancies were traumatic, and it didn't turn out like the process didn't go how I was expecting it to go. I was high risk with both pregnancies for different reasons, so I had to be on bed rest both times. And then both of my kids are they're 18 months apart, so I didn't really get to have like, kind of like a long gap or transition in between the two pregnancies. And then from there, just financially, and then where we were at the time, it just felt like, the best option was for me to just stay home with them, at least for like until they're ready to start school, which is about like 3 years old. And that's what happened. So I stayed home, but then somewhere in that process, I was like, this ain't for me. I don't like this. I'm not enjoying it like I hope that I would. Like I want something else. Like I want to go back to work. But it was good. I enjoyed the time that I got to spend with my children. I taught them from home. I loved taking them on trips to the library and even doing like projects with them at home. Like it was fun. I'm a kid at heart. So it wasn't hard to like, enjoy the time with them, but it was hard. It was hard. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. It was hard. I had moments where it was just overwhelming. Like it was extremely overwhelming. My husband worked, and of course he would help when he comes home from work. He did what he could, but I didn't expect him to do so much because he's exhausted. Like he's been at work all day, but he did what he could, but it was overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
And but it was good. I don't regret it. I love my kids. And I'm like, sometimes you have to say that, because I realize like a lot of times when I would say like, I'm ready to go back to work, somehow people translated that to meaning like I don't enjoy spending time with my children, or I take being at home with them for granted. And that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case at all. And like you said, it's not that I prefer like, oh, working is better than being at home with your children. I'm like, no, whatever works for you, like, whatever makes you feel fulfilled, go for it. And being home was not it.
Right. And I
That did
think,
not help.
yeah, and I think that's the big thing that I really want us to like make sure that we focus on. Is like, it sounds like in your story, you realize that somewhere along the way, the circumstance was no longer a good fit for you. And that's what led you to transition to working outside of the home. And so that I want to ask you that question next, but I'm also realizing, and this is, I don't know if this is something you've thought about, but I think what I've noticed about being a stay-at-home mom, and this is not something I've ever done before, but I feel like nowadays there's definitely a spectrum to it. Like the way that you were explaining, your mom stayed home, she taught you all at home. I feel like sometimes when we hear stay-at-home mom, we hear the one end of the spectrum, but I'm noticing just in like communications with other stay-at-home moms, there's definitely a spectrum and levels to it, where like some women work at home and they still consider themselves a stay-at-home mom. Or there are some women who maybe work part-time outside of the home and stay at home part-time, and they consider themselves a stay-at-home mom. Or there might be some women who stay at home and work from home, but their children are educated outside of the home, and that's still, considered a stay-at-home mom. So I think that's one thing I want us to acknowledge too. Like there's definitely levels to what being a stay-at-home mom might look like for someone. And it sounds like for you, you had the experience of your mom being on one end of the spectrum, and you kind of doing that as well for the first few years of their life.
And yeah, that's exactly right. And I also worked part-time while I was at home. So I did some freelance work, and then I also did some part-time work. But it's exactly what you said. Like, so it is a spectrum, and we can't really box stay-at-home moms to be like, okay, they all of them stay home and they cook and clean all day and just run after their children. That's not necessarily true. And I don't even think it was true for the older generations. And I'm just speaking off of my mom's experience. So that's exactly right. Like it's a spectrum, and it varies based, depending on the mom and their lifestyle.
Absolutely. Yep. And so tell me a little bit more about what led you specifically to want to transition from being a stay-at-home mom to a working mom. And I know what I heard you say earlier was just that it sounded like somewhere along the way you started to feel inside of yourself. And I don't know if it was like intuitively or like mentally, emotionally, like something happened where it no longer was a good fit for you. So tell us more about what led you to want to transition to working outside of the home.
Absolutely. So, I try to be very self-aware. I'll, do self-examinations where I'll ask my husband or my best friend, like, what did you notice this year about me that was good or that, wasn't necessarily so pleasant? Like, what can I work on? So I'm constantly trying to better myself. And I noticed, like, within that, somewhere along in that 3 year span, my emotional well-being was at like the absolute lowest. Like that was first and foremost. I did not feel like myself. Like I felt like I was losing me. And it wasn't like, I hated life or, anything of that extreme. But I just knew like I wasn't in a good place emotionally. And then feeling isolated and disconnected, whether it was to my friends or just life outside of motherhood. So it wasn't like I never got out or did anything, like, no, nothing like that. But it's just that there's this feeling of isolation where I'm a mom now, and some of my friends, they're not there, and some of them are still single. So it was just like, it's almost like a whole different world on its own. And it's hard for people to understand where you're at unless they're there as well, or unless they've been there recently. So just feeling isolated. And then also just feeling guilty, like all the time. Like anytime I did something that was outside of my role as a mom or outside of motherhood, I felt guilty. Like I felt like, oh, you're taking time away from your kids, or, you're not being a good mom because, again, my mom was a stay-at-home mom and she did it full time. Like that's what she did. So in comparison to that, I thought, okay, you're failing your kids. Like you're not giving them 100% you all the time. So mom guilt was a big thing for me. And all of those things, it was just like, okay, I just felt like I was losing myself emotionally. I knew I wasn't okay. And I didn't want to keep feeling like that. Like I didn't want to go on. And then years later, I'm bitter or angry or even take it out on my children. I haven't done that, but I've, studied things and read, articles where people have gotten to that point, and I did not ever want to get there. So I was like, no, I need help. I miss work. I miss like, friendships outside of motherhood. I need to do something. And that's what led me to start pursuing that transition from, being home and then to working outside of home.
Yep. And again, I commend you because it sounds like you were very in tune with how you were feeling. And that was the driving decision maker. Is like, I don't feel right. I don't feel good right now. I don't feel, and I know when you were in Power Wellness Program, we talked a lot about mom guilt, like you and I, but then also as a group. And I think you've done such a great job of like really turning that around and continuing to move forward and make the best decision for you. Um, another thing it made me think of too, I think we are all so influenced by how our mothers raised us. And it
Yeah.
is definitely it takes a lot of like internal work and reflection to realize like, yes, my mom, raised me this particular way. And I love and honor her, respect it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be my way. And, that's something that I'm definitely working on. And it sounds like you went through that process as well. And now you're coming out on the other end and doing something that feels like a better fit for you.
Yeah.
I love that. I really do. And, now I'm definitely curious about what are some of the specific challenges you faced during the transition. Because with any transition, transitions are just hard. And so
Yeah.
it's like, it's one of those things where like, you're leaving something behind that is not a good fit anymore. You're working towards something that you're excited about. But in the middle between those two is like, you got to like get through the mud. Right. And so like, I already heard you mention one challenge, and I don't know if this was a challenge that you were going to talk about, but you're saying that people had opinions about, your transition, or like people assuming that it was like you didn't love your kid, which is crazy. I don't even like us saying that. Like, all of
Yeah.
us love our kids. Like, we
Yeah.
clearly love our kids. Like, these
Yeah.
decisions have nothing to do with them. But I imagine that that was one challenge that you had to deal with, of just, having to deal with people's opinions and their assumptions. But with that, what are some other challenges that you also had to face during the transition too?
Definitely what you mentioned, and also time being of the essence. Like, time was a huge thing because it was like, okay, so my oldest is starting school. I need to find childcare for my youngest, and he'll have 1 year because he started at 2, so he'll be 3 next year. So that's like a full year in daycare. So it was like, okay, I need to find something, and then just the job search. Like, I haven't really professionally worked for 3 years. That's a long time. Explaining that gap, like, that's a thing. Like, when you're applying for a position and then it's like, okay, here's my resume, but now I have to say like, well, what happened? Like, where have you been? And I had to learn, like, well, wait a minute, I've been working, and not just the part-time job or the freelancing. It's like, no, being a stay-at-home mom is a job. Like, it requires discipline and skills. And so I learned how to word that. And I'm like, no, that's going on my resume. Like, I've been managing a home, a family, children. Like, that requires skill. That is not something
Absolutely.
get up and do and it happens. No, it doesn't work like that. So I had to learn, like, just how to pretty much put myself out there again on a resume. Like, it's been that long. So it's like, okay, how do I update this to where, like, I'm not begging for a job, but it's like, no, I'm putting like my true and real qualities out there. And yes, I've been home, but I've been working while I was home. So that was challenging, and having to turn down jobs because even though the pay was good, the pay would have been great, but the schedule conflict. It was like, now I couldn't just, like, suit up and go into an interview by, yes, like, girl, you got this. Like, this is gonna work out. It was like, okay, well, what about my kids? Like, what about their school schedule? Will I be able to leave and pick them up? Like, how is that going to conflict with my work schedule? So that was a challenge. So I had to turn down some position because I was like, no, my kids are still important. Yes, I want to do this, but I still need to make sure I'm available in that sense because they still need me that way. So that was another challenge. And then also being turned down because it's like, well, we don't think you're a good fit because we cannot, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, we can't accommodate for your schedule, like, or for the times that you're asking. Like, that's not gonna work for us. So that was a challenge as well. And I had to learn, like, don't take that to heart. It's just a part of the process. Like, it's just a part of it. You'll find the right position, and at the right time, it's going to work out. And then, explaining my work history, like, why was there that gap, and what did I do in between that time? So all of those things, like, it was challenging. Just like, like you said, it's something new, it's different, and it's not any easier. So again, just like you said in the beginning, like, being a stay-at-home mom or being a working mom outside of your home, both are hard. Both come with their challenges and difficulties. So it was hard, but I had to learn to maneuver through it, take things one day at a time,
Yeah.
and figure it out. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad you spoke to the piece of like like when women have been home for a while and then they want to go back into the workforce and they feel like they haven't done anything, like that is so false. Like
Yeah.
being a mom, like you said, all those skills that you were able to articulate, like discipline, you're basically a project manager.
Yeah.
Like you
Hello.
you know, like just doing all these things like routine and managing little people, managing a home, like there's so many skills that
Yeah.
you developed being home with your children that you can take to somebody's job. Like, absolutely, you have skills. And so I hate that society has like undermined motherhood so much that they
Yeah.
lead us to believe that we don't have any skills just because we've been home with our children. Like, being home with your children is the hardest thing. Like,
It
I
is.
tell my husband all the time, like, look, let me go to work because that's easier. It's easier
Yeah.
for me than being home with my kids. And it doesn't
Right.
mean anything about my kids or about me as a mom, but I realize that there is so much energy and commitment and responsibility in being home with children all day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is
All day long.
work. It's
All day
work.
long.
And so
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you were able to get back into it, realizing like, yo, I have been working. I've been working in my home with my family, and I
Yeah.
can also take these skills to somewhere else outside of my job. Like I love that. And it's inspiring to hear that. And I'm also glad that you didn't internalize, the moments when you maybe didn't get a position. Because like you said, it's not personal.
Yeah.
The jobs are looking for a good fit, just like you're looking for a good fit. And so if they
Exactly.
can't accommodate your hours, that is an indication that, hey, this is just not the one for me. And I've got to find the right fit because you want to be satisfied.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess what helped you the most during this transition? Because, I know that you mentioned the challenges, but what were the things that really helped you keep going and really helped in the transition?
Um, Definitely prayer, first and foremost. Just being able to pour out my frustrations. And I feel like, when I talk to God, it's like no conversation with anybody else because I can just say whatever I'm feeling and I don't feel like it's going to be taken the wrong way or like, being translated into something else, but just being able to let that out, go like, God help me, because this is like, it's a lot. I don't know what I'm doing. I hope I'm making the right decision and it's going to work out in the end. And then just being honest about what I really wanted. Like that was big for me. It was like, be honest. Like you don't enjoy being home any longer. It's okay. Like it's okay to change your mind about being a stay-at-home mom. Like it is absolutely okay. It doesn't mean you failed as a mom or a human being. It doesn't make you weak or any of that stuff. Like it's absolutely okay to say like, I can't do this anymore. Like this is not for me. I cannot spend another year as a stay-at-home mom. So just being honest about how I really felt and what I really wanted, that helped me a lot because once I made up my mind, it was easy to just go and do what I needed to do. And then my village, like they showed up for me, like from my husband to my best friend and to my son's godparents, like they really showed up in ways that I didn't even expect, but it was so needed. Like that made a huge difference. And all of those things, like were what, like, they really helped me to make it happen. And then of course, I can't go without saying this, balanced working mama. Like it was really that, it was like just the right timing. Like I really believe things happen intentionally, purposefully. I don't believe in coincidence. So I don't think it was by coincidence that, I signed up when I did. It was just God's perfect timing. So all of those things like really helped me to get to where I'm at now.
I love that. I'm so glad you had all that support, all the help. I'm so glad that we could help you as well. Like it just warms my heart to know that, when you're going through a hard time or not a hard time, because
Right.
it was an exciting time. But again, transitions are stressful. There are
Right.
because they're new. And so when you're going through that time that you have the support of your family and your partner and Balanced Working Mama and all these resources that really helped get you from point A to point B safely. So I just love that so much. Um, I guess tell me, what is something that you learned about yourself or your children or your family like through this process? Like what was the big thing that you really learned or took away from it?
I would say for my family that they are very supportive. Like they're very supportive. Even my children. Now I know people like, but they're kids, and no, they have been phenomenal through like this whole process. I know I'm gonna get emotional just thinking about it. They transitioned so well, like so well with both of them. My son, my oldest, he's never been in daycare, so he went straight to preschool, and then my youngest starting daycare. Like they transitioned so well. Like I haven't had any like issues outside of what you would expect from like your typical toddlers. They have their personalities and all, but they really transition well. Like I haven't had to how do I say this? Like I haven't had any meltdowns from them. Like, because sometimes children don't take major changes very well. And that's understandable because, it's huge for them. Like they don't understand what's happening. It's like, well, why am I going to school and not with mom all day long as usual? So it's like them being supportive and really taking this well. Um, so I realized that about like they could handle it. Like, I didn't know how they were going to respond. Like there's no way of knowing until you're in the process. And then it's like, ooh, okay, what's happening? Like, how do I deal with this? And then for myself, I would say that, and it's not even so much that I didn't already know this, but it was like a reminder, like I know what I want. And that's never been something I'm confused about. Like I've always known what I want, but it's just a matter of when I go after that, like when I decide like, okay, no, this is what you really want and you need to do it. So, just realizing like I am able to make up my mind and go for what I want and not allow, motherhood or mom guilt, um, or anything, to just like be my excuse to not go for it or to not make a change, like no matter how uncomfortable it may be, just to go for it. And I learned that I am strong. Like I'm strong, and not because I can handle everything. That's not what I think about when I think of strong. For me, strong is being able to admit, like, I'm not okay and I do need help, or I am struggling, or, emotionally, like, I'm not at my best. That's what made me realize that you are strong. The fact that you're able to ask for help, like, like that is being strong, and that makes you a good mom. Like, that makes you a great mom. And, I thought about my mom, and I had a conversation with her where we got to talking about motherhood, and the question came up. I was like, how did you do it? Like, it was 7 of us. Like, how did you do it? And she was just like, I just did what I had to do, but I was overwhelmed. It was difficult. It's like she did what she thought was her only option. And for me, I'm like, that's not being strong. That's like literally what society has told us from like, ages ago. Like motherhood is you sacrificing your well-being, yourself, like your ambitions, your goals at all costs. And it doesn't have to be like that. And like you said, just rewriting the narrative, like rewriting what it means to be a mom, to be, like what motherhood is to me. So being able to redefine motherhood, like it made me realize like you are a strong woman, like, and you're doing okay. Like you're doing a lot better than you imagine like you would have been doing. So I think that's what, some of the things like I learned about myself and
Mhm.
my family throughout this process.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so proud of you. Like, I really am. And I think I love that question of, I wanted to ask you what you learned about yourself, because I know that through this process, you've grown so much. And so I just know that, you realized a lot more about yourself. And I'm so glad that you've realized, like, yes, you are strong. And that strong doesn't mean being able to do all the things, but strong means, like you said, being able to tap into how you feel and communicating how you feel, being assertive about it, like claiming what you want and not being afraid to say it. But I also love what you said about, like, what you want and not doubting that, like, and really listening to that voice, that tells you, like, hey, this is it, this is the thing that I want. So I'm just so proud of you and so happy. And I love what you said about your kids supporting you, because I know exactly what you mean. Little kids really can support you. Like, first of all,
Yes.
I think we don't give our kids enough credit. Like, kids are so resilient.
Yes,
But then also, like, kids really do get with the program very quickly. It's just us. Like, we're the ones that hold them back.
yep,
And, like, they get with things very fast. They get with
yes.
routines really easily. Like, I know my son, like, he supports me in my work as well, because, like, just now, I left them upstairs with my husband so that I could record the podcast. And he was like, "You going to work, mommy?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to go work, mommy, or I'm going to go to work, baby." He was like, "Okay, you going to have a meeting?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to have a podcast meeting." He was like,
Yeah.
"Okay." He was like, "I'll open the door for you." So he, like, opened the basement door for me so I
Oh,
could go downstairs and record it. And it's
that is
so
so
cute.
cute.
And it's their way of, like, supporting what we
Yes.
do. And so I know how good it probably felt, to have your kids support you, like your kids to see that this thing is something that mommy enjoys and mommy needs, and let me help her, even in the small toddler ways that they can.
Mhm.
So I'm so glad for that. I know we are about to wrap up soon, and I've really enjoyed this conversation, but I know that there are probably some mamas who are listening who might be stay-at-home moms and wanting to transition to working maybe outside of the home or working full time, whatever their transition might look like. And so tell us maybe 2 to 3 tips of what you might say to a mama who is wanting to begin her transition from stay-at-home mom to working mom.
I would say definitely look into childcare, do your research. So, don't feel like you have to rush, but ask questions, look around, make sure that, it's a good fit, not just for yourself, but for your child. You don't want to just put them out there because, okay, I'm ready to get out the house. I want to get back to work. You just go somewhere, like, but really do your research and make sure that the school is exactly what you would want for your child, because these people become like second parents, really, because your child is in their care for, like, majority of the day. So you really want to make sure, like, it's a good fit, not just for your schedule, but for your child as well. And I would also say delegating. When you're a stay-at-home mom, it's a lot easier for you to just assume all of the tasks. Like, okay, I'm home, I have to do everything. And even then, I don't recommend it. And it shouldn't be that way. I don't agree with that. I know people do it, but I don't necessarily do that or recommend it. But delegate, like, figure out a plan, like, okay, who's gonna do what? Because it's different. Like, it's going to be new routines. It's a completely different schedule than what you all are used to. So coming up with a plan on, who's going to do it, when it's going to be done. And I know you've even talked about outsourcing, and that's something that I'm now looking into. And don't be afraid. Like, there are options if you're on a budget. I am not afraid to tell people I work with a budget. I want to know what I'm doing with my money, where it's going, and all of that good stuff. So there's options out there. And then I would also say organize, have a schedule, routines. Like, I can't say that enough. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom or a working mom outside of your home, definitely organize and have a schedule, so that way you can keep things afloat. Because at least if you have a schedule, if you have routines, if something doesn't go accordingly, you know where to pick up, what to push back, and you have an idea of, like, okay, well, I can do that tomorrow. I can do it at the end of the week. But if you don't plan, it'll be a lot more difficult. Like it'll be a lot more difficult to transition. So I would say like those are some of the major things that I would say to prepare for.
Yes, those were so good. Thank you, Tara, so much. Like, I could see you one day mentoring stay-at-home moms in their transition. I don't know if that's something you want to do, but like
Who
something
knows?
like, she could do this. Like, she could really mentor other women who need that. So I just thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience, but then also being a part of our community too. Like, um, I'm so happy and grateful to know you. So thank you so much. Please tell us, where can other mamas connect with you if they want to learn more about you, your experience? How can they connect with you?
I'm on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is You Carried Life. And that name was actually inspired throughout like this whole process. It was like, girl, you carried life twice. That is huge. Like you did like some life-changing stuff. That's major. So that's my Instagram handle at You Carried Life. And then you can also email me. It's TaraFAdams@gmail.com. I check my email regularly. So that's another way to contact me and get to know me a little bit more. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Tara, so much. I'm going to let you get back to your family, but I know that this episode is going to help another mama a lot. So I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, Mama, I'm so glad you're listening to the podcast, but I also want to connect with you on social media. So be sure to follow me and Balanced Working Mama on Instagram. You can find me at Dr. Amber Thornton. That's DrAmberThornton, and Balanced Working Mama at Balanced Working Mama. BALANCEDWORKINGMAMA. Follow along, join in on the fun, but then also send me a DM to say hello. See you there. Hey, Mama. Thank you for listening to the Balanced Working Mama podcast. If you love this podcast, please be sure to rate it and share it with another mama that you know. And don't forget to follow me and Balanced Working Mama on Instagram. I'll talk to you soon.